With the advent of microfluidics, blood has been considered as one of the very important fluids which are progressively being implemented in various microfluidic technologies for primarily two purposes. Number one, to understand the physiology within human body, and number two, to develop medical diagnostic devices. The study with blood as a fluid in a theoretical paradigm comparable with experimental findings started way back in early 1800s, when the classical fully developed velocity for flow through a circular tube was analyzed by using a very complicated apparatus which is apparently not directly related to the physiological pathways, but that gave rise to the inception of a plethora of studies which has laid the basic foundation of blood flow through microcapillaries. On face, human body capillary vessels are like pipes. Pipes in a way, not engineered pipes, but nature-made tubes which are complex in architecture, highly networked, and apparently in terms of layout, there is a similarity in complexity of the network of pipes in an industrial plant and the network of microcapillaries, which are microchannels in human body that connects the arterioles and the venules. In reality, the challenge in understanding blood flow in a physiologically referenced system is much more complex. To give an example, we may consider this particular view graph, which is showing a phenomenon called as angiogenesis. When a cancer spreads and advances in the human body, new blood vessels are dynamically created, and these are created to ensure that the tumor gets nutrition, the tumor gets sufficient growth factors to enable it growing towards advancing the cancer. Now, this kind of dynamic event in a highly complex network structure having unique deformability, and on the top of that, the complex rheology of blood is something which makes such a problem extremely more complicated than the flow of an engineering fluid through pipes. I mentioned very briefly about blood as a complex fluid. Literally, there is nothing more complex than blood in terms of fluid dynamics, because blood has a watery component which is like plasma, but we will see subsequently that plasma is something which is elusively more complex than water, primarily because of the plasma proteins which form a network structure: albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. In addition, the blood has cellular components, the red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. All in all, if you include all these, blood as a whole doesn't behave always as a Newtonian fluid. Under certain shear rates, it closely mimics Newtonian behavior, but at low shear, it forms agglomerates and exhibits extremely complex morphological characteristics. On the top of that, the red blood cell itself is highly deformable. So if we constrain the red blood cell, which is around 7 to 8 micron in size, to flow through a microchannel which is itself around that size, then the red blood cell will get deformed to an extent that from a biconcave disc shape, it will take the shape of a bullet. And because of its elastic nature, it relaxes back to its discoid shape when that extreme shear is withdrawn. In addition, in microfluidic capillaries, the red blood cells exhibit certain remarkable characteristics. In 1931, an effect was discovered in medical science known as Farhius-Lindquist effect. What it all says is that if you have a microcapillary, or in a different viewpoint, say you have a larger size capillary tube and you reduce the diameter of the capillary tube as soon as you enter into the microfluidic domain, maybe less than 500 micron, you see that with the same volumetric occupancy of the red blood cells, apparently the blood becomes less viscous. It is intuitive to believe that in a narrower channel, the blood cells will create more obstructions, so the effective viscous resistance would have been more. However, in reality, because of extreme deformation of the red blood cells, as we enter into microchannels having dimensions of similar order, there is a lift force away from the wall. And because of the shear gradient in the flow, there is a force towards the wall. So under equilibrium of these two forces, the red blood cells stay at a distance away from the wall. So very close to the wall where viscous effects are the strongest, a cell-free layer is formed. And this gives rise to such unique characteristics. But human physiology, if we think of microcapillary dynamics, is not just about the complexity of blood, but also the complexity of the vessel through which it flows. This is extremely critical to understand because for a long period of time, microfluidic research with blood considered blood flow through engineered microchannels which are not closely mimicking with the blood vessels in human body. And these kind of studies, therefore, gave rise to very interesting conclusions for drug trial and so many other physiological studies, but they could not directly be translated to clinical practice, simply because the human physiological environment and the fluidic environment in these channels, they are different. To bridge this gap, we did some work on fabricating deformable microchannels. A microchannel made of a material known as gelatin, which is derived from collagen, which is a protein abundantly found in human tissues. These materials are more biocompatible than the PDMS as a common microfluidic platform. They have typically low elastic modulus and hence extremely deformable under flow, very much similar to what happens in human body. And using a very simple and frugal technology, we used a lumbar puncture needle to form a gel, solidified gel structure around cylindrical channels of between 240 to 480 micron. And once the needle is withdrawn, as you can see that the needle is actually penetrating into a petri dish, and around the needle the gel molding takes place. So after you remove the needle, a hollow cylindrical microchannel is prepared. So using this, we probed red blood cell dynamics, and to do that we used a combination of particle image velocimetry to study the flow field and particle tracking velocimetry to study the movement of red blood cells at various locations. So we could figure out that under the action of these two opposing forces at the wall that I just mentioned, there can be an alteration in transition of the motion of the red blood cells from tumbling motion to tank trading motion. One which is having a rotational type of movement, and the other one which is having significantly less rotational velocity. And this transition is important because the tumbling motion is supposed to endure a higher drag force than the tank trading motion. While these transitions previously were known, the role of deformability of the blood vessel, how it affects this, was not very clearly understood. Subsequently, we tried to advance these techniques to make a network of such biomimetic blood vessels. So not a single blood vessel, but a network of such microfluidic vessels, very much similar to blood vessels inside human body. So we used two different techniques. One is a nature-inspired soft lithography technique, that is by using leaves. If you see the leaves in plants, the leaves have certain veins and there are branches. Human body circulatory network, microcirculatory network, has similar branches. But the challenge is that if we make replica of these through molding, the inner lumen is not circular. So what we did is we used a hydrogel molding technique using a wire structure to make both structurally and functionally mimicking network of blood vessels. And inside these blood vessels, we lined endothelial cells. So these are not real blood vessels, these are engineered blood vessels. We lined them with endothelial cells and then studied the motion of circulatory tumor cells or the dynamics of circulatory tumor cells within these engineered biomimetic channels. We could find you can see some green spots in this view graph, which are cell-cell tight junctions, and the blue fluorescence, which is representing the cell nucleus. Using these know-how, we also studied how the deformability of the blood vessels as well as the rheology of the blood affects magnetic nanoparticle assisted targeted drug delivery. So we could figure out that when a magnetic field is applied across a microfluidic channel, there is a transverse magnetic force which tries to take the drug carrying nanoparticles towards the wall, and it can penetrate the wall, whereas the viscous drag is acting along the channel. So a competition of these two forces decides how the drug loaded nanoparticle will be transported towards the wall. But the penetration of the wall and getting into the extracellular matrix and maybe to a tumor site, it all depends on the deformability of the wall. So we studied again hydrogel microchannels, its deformability under flow, and how it affects magnetic field assisted nanoparticle based drug delivery. Now, one side of the story that I brought out is related to this human physiology, but on the other side, there is an upsurge in the development of diagnostic devices using paper as a diagnostic platform, where lots of blood tests are currently being done. If you consider one drop of blood and it is moving on a paper, it may appear to be very simple, but it is elusively complex, because the red blood cells, they can form certain blockages in the complex porous pathway of the paper, and in that way we can have a hindered diffusion transport of blood. So diffusivity of blood is about 5 times less than that of plasma. Plasma is still more diffusive than water, although plasma is watery, but plasma has these plasma proteins which can make it chemically distinctive, and therefore the diffusive spreading is much less, and water has a natural diffusive spreading. So this diffusive spreading of blood can be harnessed to a great extent, not just on dry paper but also on moist paper, to study the pattern and understand the behavior of blood. But normally in medical diagnostic devices, we also have a provision where we constrain the blood to flow through microfluidic confinements. The idea is that the blood, by capillary action, will move from a source to a destination, reach a reaction site where the reaction will be conducted with another chemical, and a colorimetric or other form of response will be detected. So to make this paper microchannel, we could simply make this pattern in an office printed paper, heat it for 4 to 5 minutes at around 200 degrees centigrade, so that tonal particles, they melt and block the pores, and that is how the hydrophobic barrier is created. Using such a technology, we developed disruptive diagnostic technologies for low-cost detection of blood glucose on such printed paper strip, interfaced with smartphone app for result detection, the color generated as a part of a side reaction, calibrated with glucose concentration. Similarly, we have developed screening devices for anemia, and subsequently advanced the same to a different technology known as paper and pencil microfluidics, a technology which has been developed and to an extent advanced in our group at IIT Kharagpur, where using pencil sketched electrodes, by virtue of which you have graphite deposited on a piece of paper, one could have electrokinetic transport or electrically driven motion of fluids, including blood. Using such a technology, we have also demonstrated how to do multiple diagnostic tests with single drop of blood. For example, testing both blood glucose and bilirubin, a very important liver function marker, using one drop of blood on a strip of paper. So to summarize, starting from understanding the fundamental biophysics of microcapillaries, health and disease, and translatory work for developing microfluidic technologies for affordable healthcare delivery at extreme point of care, this kind of technology remains imperative. Microfluidics with blood is a very, very important backbone of the modern advancement of healthcare, where complex fluids plays a very critical role. We have tried to develop these technologies not just in the lab, but we have advanced these to an extent that these could be disseminated at extreme resource limited settings, and the on-field testing of various blood-borne analytes could be done at numerous field trials in villages where prior to this no diagnostic tests could be conducted because of limited resources. I would like to acknowledge various funding agencies and my collaborators for supporting our research and making these works possible. Thank you very much.